Hi again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Winning Ways with the MIAA. I'm your host, Pete Royce from Franklin TV. It's so good to have us on board here. Jay Horrigan with Franklin TV, and also Dr. Bob Baldwin, the Executive Director of the MIAA. Today we get a little more serious in our weekly discussions, or our regular discussions, and this is going to be about an important topic about eradicating hate and bias through sports. And this is very important. And I guess, Bob, the reason this came about is there have been, unfortunately, some incidences of hate and bias in society, and it does affect all parts of the culture, and you wanted to respond to that.
Well, I started my tenure in this role last fall, and there were a few situations that were just unacceptable that had occurred. And within a matter of 1 week's time, I received at the office phone calls from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, the Attorney General's Office, the Anti-Defamation League, and the Northeastern Center for Sport and Society, all saying, what can we do collectively? And I think that's kind of unprecedented, and we got together, and now you're going to see the product of that enough is enough, and what can we do proactively to attempt to eradicate hate and bias through the platform of sport?
Yeah, it's really a great topic, and I know you had a big conference, a big really plenary session to kind of get everybody going. There were so many partners involved with that. Everybody is vested in this topic.
They are, and kudos to the Attorney General at the time, who is now our Governor, Healy, who really got this thing going and was the champion throughout. The Attorney General's office has been coordinating meetings throughout, and her work and their work, and I got to meet a lot of great people in that office who have just championed getting all of these players together. And now we have a plan, and we're going to execute that plan, and we're going to go out to schools and leaders, et cetera, and try and make a difference.
And Jay, one of the things that you think about when you think about eradicating hate and bias is the role of the youngsters, the role of kids in starting that foundation and then building so that there's no place for that in society. They have a key role in that.
They absolutely do, because as Dr. Baldwin has said, the habits and things that kids do as they're growing up become their way of behaving as they're adults. And I'm sure that's a motivating force behind you, Dr. Baldwin, and as well as the other people at the MIAA to really push this program.
You've heard me talk ad infinitum about growing courageous leaders, and I've said over and over again, yes, it's short term. What are they behaving like today? But it's really long term, and our society needs to get better. And one way that we can have a captive audience is through interscholastic athletics. And why can't we promote the right way to behave and positive behaviors as opposed to the dysregulated behaviors that tend to have occurred in the past year or so?
As one of your speakers at your recent conference, Bob, pointed out, I think it was Colleen Coyle, the gold medalist in hockey, she said that if you have these things going on, you could be denying access to a sport from some very capable individual who sees it and says, I don't want to do that. And that's the part you want to minimize.
Sports are so important, and we need more kids playing sport, not less. And with these difficult situations, some of our best athletes, some of our best student athletes are dropping out because it's not comfortable for them. And it's just way too important to let that happen. So it's incumbent upon all of us to make sports a welcoming and safe place where anyone feels like they can join, they can participate, and feel welcome and have a really positive experience.
Young eyes are watching these. You know, we think as adults that we are attempting to have an influence on our young adolescents and our high school students. Well, young eyes are watching those high school students, and I want to be just like that person or just like them. And we certainly, we've heard kids talk about this, the name on the front of the jersey, not the name on the back. You want your town, yourself, your name, your person to be something that exudes what is right and not what is wrong, because they're impressionable people that are watching you every day. And if that puts a little pressure on a high school athlete, but that's good pressure. It's pressure to be looked up to as opposed to behave in an inappropriate manner.
You talked about when you first started, you got a phone calls from a bunch of different people. Is that kind of what brought this collaboration together? Was there something else involved with it? And what are the parties that are involved with it, along with the MIAA, Governor Healey's office, as well as the Attorney General's office?
So what was really neat, interesting, is that there was an instant synergy for people that really didn't know each other, but our cause was enough is enough. And so Attorney General Healey at the time, now Governor Healey, reached out to our offices, and their offices reached out. Again, the Center for Sport and Society from Northeastern University, the Anti-Defamation League, the Mass Association of School Superintendents, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and it was just a matter of a convening after that. And we actually did have, prior to the December 8th event, a convening that happened last spring virtually, in which Attorney General at the time, Healey, began that as the champion. But we were all kind of reading from the same sheet of music before we even saw the music. It was, this is what's right, this is what has to be done. We are quote unquote leaders in this Commonwealth. Let's come together for this great cause.
Do each of you have specific roles in dealing with this program, or is it more MIAA, we're going to deal with the students involved, try to teach them? How does that all work?
So we don't have the bandwidth to pull it off.
Yeah.
And we also shouldn't be. People look to the MIAA, as I said in a previous, as we are either the cure or the curse for everything in the world.
Right.
And no, we need to be partners, connectors. And what happened here is we're just all sitting around a room saying, we can get this group together, we can get that group together. What ended up happening is the Dan Lebowitz and the Center for Sport and Society at Northeastern University has the bandwidth, the talent to provide training. We have the platform. The Attorney General's office and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education have the ability to help fund some of this. The Mass Association of School Superintendents and Tom Scott and ourselves can talk about logistics and how we can pull this off. So it truly is, it is a true team that different members have different roles to pull this off, and it's about to segue to where the Northeastern Center for Sports and Society are going to do 13 regional trainings consistent with what the Superintendent's Association and the MIA have as their districts geographically, to try and start to get the right people in the room. I don't want to talk too long on this issue, but really the answer is it's not about all these people. It's about what happens in each locker room, on each practice field, on each ice rink. It's our student athletes who say, no, this isn't how we behave here. This isn't the way we act here. So it can never be about this entity called the MIAA or the Attorney General's office. It has to be about each individual doing what's right.
And I think we'll see if we roll some video from the conference, that Governor-elect Healey mentioned at that time, there's so many more temptations for the kids today. She said she was grateful she didn't grow up today, because social media presents, besides the locker room stuff, it's magnified with what goes on in social media. The challenge for the kids today is really enormous.
The advent of social media, thank God I didn't have social media growing up. So many things. We were talking about this a little while ago with Dana, who you'll hear from, but the opportunity for things to go so wrong, to go off the rails so easily for kids today, is something that I never experienced, certainly never experienced as a student athlete.
These are, I guess they're okay, but they don't help.
Yeah.
And in the instant gratification of the world we live in today, what is put on these quite often isn't what's real. We all know that. But what also is put here is instant, and you're instantly told this, and you're instantly told that. And, you know, there is a purity to just good behavior, a null and void away from social media. And how do you teach that? How do you embed that? I agree wholeheartedly with her. I tell the story that when I used to get rejected to the school dance of somebody I asked, I used to send a note to a girl the girl that I liked, get rejected, and a week later I got that back.
Yeah,
now you're
right.
told within 30 seconds, no, and this is why.
And everybody else knows,
And everybody
too.
else knows,
Yeah.
and then how does that deal?
Yeah.
So our kids are young and impressionable, and they're being asked to deal with things that maybe they're not even ready for yet.
So the conference was a start.
Yes.
But you're going to take it now and you're going to spread it throughout the state. Tell us about that process.
So the Attorney General's Office and the Mass Association of School Superintendents and Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed and MIAA are going to be meeting to ask how, and again, the Anti-Defamation League has been involved in this, but now we're going to reach out and kick it to the experts, the talent, which is the Northeastern Center for Sport and Society. Gentleman that I've been able to get to know well is a great person, Dan Lebowitz, and his staff is amazing. And they have the bandwidth to provide trainings regionally across the Commonwealth, starting on the weekend of March 16th and 17th, going through almost April vacation on the school side. Every weekend, regionally, they'll make announcements, schools will sign up. But here's the catch. Your superintendent, your principal, and your athletic director are the three that are going. Those are the ones we want trained first so that there's a through line and they buy into what needs to happen. From there, we'll go to step 2 and step 3, but we need to get buy-in from the people who make the decisions at the top of a district, at the top of a school, and at the top of an athletic. So they are in synergy, and they're not, well, I heard a good conference the other day. Well, they need to all be in the room, and that's how we're going to make this happen.
That will be part of the 13 conference?
Yes, it will. Yes,
Okay.
it will.
Yep. So that really is
Yeah.
on the horizon, right around the corner.
It is, and as you said, people will have to register ahead of time.
Yes.
Obviously, choose the location. I'm assuming by having 13 of them, they're going to be moved around the state. They're
Yes.
all not at the same location.
So that we're having a final meeting today. The first day after February vacation, the registration will open. All we have room for is 130 schools right now,
Okay.
because it's 3 per school, no more than 30 at a training. So it's a quality training and 13 trainings. So 10 schools per 13 trainings is 130. There'll be spots in the Berkshires. There'll be spots in Western Mass besides the Berkshires. There'll be Central Mass. It'll be located so no one can say, I couldn't go regionally because it wasn't in my area. If you live down the Cape and you want to go to Worcester, you can do that. But we're trying to say that we're making it as capable as possible for groups of individuals to go and try and be trained.
You mentioned the numbers or the smaller numbers, so it's an effective training. How many total schools are in the MIAA? These numbers, I know we've talked about them before, but I just think they're so tremendous, and I don't think people realize the reach.
So we have close to 280
Yeah.
member schools now, and you're saying, well, you're not attacking this if you're doing less than half. We're hoping we have a huge waiting list.
Yeah.
We're hoping we have a problem that we have to come back to the table to say we need to open up more, we need to do something different. That would be a nice problem to have, but you also want to start by doing something right and well, as opposed to 1 per district to get all the schools in. Now the one person goes back saying this is the right thing to do to a party of who? And
Right.
so if you can get the synergy between a superintendent, a principal, and an athletic director moving in the right direction, let's hope that we have a huge waiting list, and we have a big problem on our hands that every school wants to have this happen.
Right.
Yeah. I go back a long time with the Northeastern Center for Study of Sport and Society. I remember when I was in college, it was the Black Power movement of the Olympics. Remember they had
Yes.
those protests in the Olympics and
in
raising your
Mexico.
fists? And I put forth a theory. I want to bounce off you, Bob. I just thought of this, that yes, people may bring different attitudes, even racial biases to the participation, to the competition. But once you're involved in the game, the excitement of the game supersedes all of that, and all of those things fall away. That's the power of high school sports. Is that still true today?
Yeah, that's why sports is the perfect platform, because when you're a member of a team, all these issues of bias should be gone.
Yeah.
It should be team first, we first. And I've seen that my whole life. I've seen communities of people just coming together, irrelevant. And so if sport can capture that and use that, and what goes on in a locker room for a common cause to be successful together, that's what we need to have permeate society. It's a Herculean effort, but why not make the effort?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's something, you've seen it obviously from your background back to the days when you were coaching. Pete, you've seen it through all your years of being a play-by-play and color commentator. I've seen it through different coaching, refereeing, and announcing. Have you seen, and I would put this to both of you, a more inclusive environment where a lot of this hate and things are, at least among the athletes and the coaches, it seems to be dissipating? You seem to be getting more one team.
I think so, Jay, but the problem is it only takes one.
Oh, you're right.
To take it in the other direction, and that's the problem.
So I'm going to be honest. I think it's on the uptick.
Okay.
And I think it's COVID and the polarization of the world we live in. And I was at a concert this summer, and it was one of the final Elton John concerts, and Elton John got up at the end and said, the great unifier is I don't care who you voted for, and I don't care what your religion is, but sports and music can be a great unifier.
Yes.
And all too often, politics and polarization and the world we live in today and COVID that took place, all too often that's happening too much. We need to get back to just, as we talked about, a locker room, a team, a common cause. Jim Collins in his book Good to Great talks about the tyranny of the or, but the power of the and. We need to get back to and, because in the world we live in today, it's too much you're either this or you're that when your belief systems. Why can't we be open to all and say it's about and?
And we were talking about before we started the show that unfortunately now what we hear is the negative. The one out of 240 student athletes who made a mistake, whatever it may be. How do you see the MIAA and the MSAA,
Yep, you got it.
A lot of initials. Your roles in that, trying to promote it with the student athletes, school administrators, so on.
So as an athletic coach, I wanted to be 20-0 and win the state championship every year. Never was 20-0, never won the state championship. But when you set the bar high, you go high. And I think that what we're trying to do is say, let's eradicate hate and bias through the platform of sport. And let's work our tails off to try and make that happen. And you get hit with a setback, you just keep pushing and keep moving forward and not giving up. And so if we can just keep pounding away and trying to do the best we can to say this is the way we should behave, this is the way it should work, we'll probably never be 20-0 and win the state championship, but maybe we can be a little bit better than we are today.
Right.
Bob, I want to get back and peel back the layer of the onion a little bit and talk about methods of doing it. What about the role of the innocent bystander observing this? I know that's very important to you. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we need to be allies and not bystanders. And bystanders need to learn that you are powerful, that you are not part of... Look, when you're an adolescent and a pre-adolescent, it is all about being a part of the group and peer pressure. Well, there's also something that should supersede that, and that is what is right. And when you see something going wrong, and this is what I get back to, it's not about the MIAA, it's about your locker room. And hey, we don't do that here. We work and we live in this school, we wear this uniform, and that's not what our culture is. That's not how we behave. We've got to get to ownership. The way to change, I say the way to build relationships is one at a time. The way to change behavior is one behavior at a time. And it's all well and good for a big institution like the MIAA to get involved, but we need to get and permeate those kids in a locker room to say, that's not how we behave in this school.
And a role not just for the captains of those teams, but anybody on that team.
See something, say something, enough. It's wrong.
Give us the quote we talked about beforehand that the gentleman from the Celtics had given at the event at the Boston Garden.
So I won't, you can help me out, but I think it was about we should do things for somebody else's children.
Oh, yeah.
There's no such thing as other people's children.
That was Bill Russell's quote.
Bill
Russell.
When you work for the Boston Celtics, you sort of get to stand on the shoulders of giants. None bigger than the number 6 up there in the rafters. That's Bill Russell's number. We've spent a season, thank you, honoring Bill Russell, who passed away recently. Bill once said, there's no such thing as other people's children. And I think that's an especially relevant point for this group of people here today. You all have extremely important roles in the lives of other people's children. And it's a big responsibility, and we all share it. We share it. The sports teams in town here share it. You share it. You need to model the right behaviors. Kids know the difference between words and actions.
It says to me that we need to, like you said, the innocent bystander. Yeah. There are no innocent bystanders. We all need to be there to help everybody.
Yeah, we love, you know, we talked about this in a previous show. We love our kids and our families, but it's really the greater good. And how can the greater good be better? By us taking care of the greater good and not turning the other way. And when you see something that you know is wrong, be an ally. Don't be a bystander. And kids can learn that. And here's the thing, they have learned it. I was in the school districts when we had anti-bullying campaigns, and I know they worked. We used to put adults in the hallways, and when they'd see something, they would say, nope, we don't do that here. And behavior changed, and kids got kinder, and a lot of that stuff went away. We can do this. We just need to set the bar high and have everybody involved, not just the few.
Bob, I want to wrap up with a quote, and I'm going to ask 2 questions of you.
Sure.
Number 1, what did it feel like standing next to Adrian Smith, the wide receiver of the Boston Renegades at the summit? And 2, what did you think of her message about stopping hate through love?
So I met a friend that day, and I've kept in contact with her, and I'm making sure that I'm going to a Renegades game to watch this perennial all-star wide receiver. Felt very inferior. Okay. She was just an amazing...
How about the shape she was in?
Oh, my, she's an amazing person, and she was ready for the season, I think, right then and there. But she... And I'm going to tell her this. When I go out and speak now, I am not afraid to use the word love. And she said, the only way to stop hate is to begin love. And, you know, I try and tell kids when I speak that love is not some wishy-washy word here. Love is just action without worrying about the consequence, just unconditional action that is good for all. And if we can, and so she had an impact on my life. I don't know why I'm standing next to her that day, and then I saw her after that, and I'm going to make sure that I go to a Renegades game. But, you know, you never know how people touch you in a certain way, and believe me, she was ready for the first game there, and I was ready for retirement a long time ago. So, but her message is we shouldn't be afraid to say things like that.
Yeah. You know what? I did want to ask you, we had talked about this earlier. The mass superintendents, as well as the MIAA and the MSAA, put out a joint statement, I believe, yesterday.
Yes.
What does that involve? What does it mean for your organization and everything when we wrap it into all these trainings and everything that you're trying to accomplish?
And what did it say, the statement?
Well, the statement just said, let's go. The dysregulated behaviors are too much, and it's time that we all step up and do something. And I think the greater statement than the words were that we're not in silos doing this. It's not the MIA's problem. It's not the Department of Ed's problem. It's not somebody else's problem. It's our problem. And collectively, when you have something signed by the executive director of the superintendents. You have something signed by the executive director of all the principals in interscholastic athletics. We've been working as partners with DESE, and they've all been all in. So I think it's a powerful statement that we mean business here, and we want a superintendent, a principal, and an athletic director to get serious about eradicating hate and bias through the platform of sport.
We're lucky, speaking for myself and I think Pete and everybody here at Franklin TV, we're happy we can do a little part in helping get this message out. And because obviously we agree we want to get rid of it, and any little part we can do to help, we'll obviously do it.
Very good, Bob. Thanks for joining us. Good luck in the effort to eradicate hate and bias through sports. And I think a lot of people are pulling that you achieve that goal.
Thank you so much for having us. We appreciate it.
Okay, that's Dr. Bob Baldwin, the Executive Director of the MIAA. That's Jay Horrigan, and I'm Pete Royce. Thanking you for watching this edition of Winning Ways with the MIAA. Till next time, so long.
This program was made possible by your Franklin friends and neighbors. Good folks just like you. Thanks for supporting Franklin TV. And thanks for watching.